Well, welcome to the Kuno podcast, everybody. We're here today with Shadrach. We're on YouTube as well at the same time as being on Apple, Spotify, and all major platforms. So subscribe to us and leave us a review and let us know if you've got any questions or any queries. Shadrach, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you, Marie. It's a pleasure to be here on the platform.
It's a pleasure to have you. Would you be able to give everybody a quick overview of kind of what you do and how you got where you are?
All right. So my name is Shadrach Bako, and I got where I am now when about 15 years ago, John Maxwell and his team visited Nigeria and did a training on leadership. And from that point, I instantly knew that this was a field I was supposed to explore and to pursue. And 6 years after, we set up Born to Lead, an organization aimed at teaching people to understand the leadership qualities and potentials that are within them, with a view to bringing them out and to enabling them live a better life while they spend their tenure here on earth. So this is who I am, and incidentally, I've got a legal training, so I'm a lawyer by training, by profession, but becoming a leadership coach and a mentor has been a great delight for me. So that's what I'm concentrating on at the moment. That's who I am. Basically, I started a meeting with a group of persons I've trained on leadership, and that spurred my heart to want to commence an academy. We started just on a light note, the academy, and so that's in progress at the moment.
And you provide training on leadership in times of crisis. So how do you define crisis, and what kind of leadership training do you provide around this?
All right, so I define crisis as any situation within or any situation beyond your control. So at the beginning of the year, everyone plans, well, not everyone, but then every reasonable person projects and plans and hopes for a good year. But in the process of executing your plans, there are situations that arise beyond your control, situations that seem to be overwhelming, situations that you could not have seen coming your way. So these situations arise and tend to shake up what you've planned and try to more or less upturn all that you've done in terms of planning. Now, those situations are situations that I call crisis situations, where you've got your plans and some other event comes to topple the plans that you've made. So those are the kind of situations that I call crisis situations. And at the moment, the world is in a crisis. With all the good plans that we made for 2020, nobody anticipated coronavirus. Yes, late last year, it was an issue in China, but nobody thought it could spread globally. But right now, it has spread globally. So there are countries who have gone into lockdown. Some have come out of lockdown and are returning to the lockdown situation. So that, in my view, is a crisis situation. And people need to rise up to be able to address that situation. So how do we train people during crisis situations? So what we do is to train people before crisis situations. All right? So for every leader, you've got to be prepared for crisis situations, which is to say that you've got to have all the leadership qualities imbibed in you. You've got to train yourself, because there are so many things that are unknown to every one of us. So you've got to develop yourself. You've got to equip yourself even before the crisis situations arise. So what we do is train people to be good leaders even before situations of crisis arise. That's what we do in terms of training.
When you're leading in times of crisis, things are
Yeah.
so uncertain and lots of different things are happening, and your team are relying on you to be the person that leads them through the crisis. Have you got
Yeah.
any tips on how you can be the best leader at this time in crisis?
Okay. So there are several tips. Okay, there are several tips that I could give to prepare you for the situation of crisis. And the first I've mentioned already, which is that you've got to prepare yourself knowing that regardless of the best of plans, there are things that can creep in to tend to frustrate what you've already planned. So you've got to prepare your heart for situations like that. And that does not mean that you become negative, and it doesn't mean that you become pessimistic. It just means that you are optimistically thinking ahead of situations that may arise that may be difficult for you to handle. So that's the first tip as to how to overcome crisis situation. The second tip is to accept and acknowledge once you're in a crisis that this is a crisis situation. Okay? Globally, I'm using the coronavirus situation as a crisis situation. Globally, a number of people accepted the coronavirus situation as a crisis situation, and were able to proffer solutions to be able to tackle these situations. But there are countries that whose leaders, so to speak, have refused to acknowledge the situation with the coronavirus. And the US is a perfect example where you have people who are in denial, particularly at the top level of leadership, who are in denial, who are refusing to listen to scientists, to acknowledge the findings of scientists, and have plunged the country into deeper situations than what they should have been in, regardless of their medical facilities and so on and so forth. So as a leader, you must learn to acknowledge, once you've entered a crisis situation, you must learn to acknowledge that you've entered a crisis situation. Now, the third tip will be to adapt. Okay? So I talked about planning. You've done all your plans. A crisis situation has arisen. Every good leader will quickly adapt to the new situation. So you don't insist on going your own way, haven't planned in a particular direction. You just simply twist and do some tweaking to adapt to the situation that is that has confronted you. So these are a few tips about how to go about confronting crisis situation. And then again, I may add that you have to be true to yourself and true to your followers. Okay, you've got to give them a true picture of the events. You've got to also give them a true picture of the solutions that you are providing. And even in situations where you haven't found solutions yet, you've got to be honest to them, to let them know you haven't found a solution, and also give them room to co-create solutions with you if room will be permissive for that.
So you advise communication and transparency as well with the team, is what I'm hearing. Is this one of the key things that you'd advise any leader to do?
Sure, that's one of the things I would advise every good leader to do. So communication has to be regular, it has to be open, it has to be honest, it has to be sincere, all right? Communication about the situation, communication about the intended solutions, communications about even the lack of solutions, okay? But the fact that you make an effort to communicate, the fact that you make an effort to express your frustrations, if there are, to those who are following, will make the situation easier for everybody. It will make it open and easier for everybody to be able to speak on the situation and probably think and create solutions with you.
I think that can be quite difficult as well as a leader when you're working far away from your team, like a lot of us are now. It's difficult to know really how to manage that and how people are taking the message, how they're, getting on and doing the work. And really how much care and how much more management do you need to give to your team when they're experiencing this crisis from a different angle to you as well?
Oh, okay. So a quote from John Maxwell, he says this, that nobody cares about how much you know unless they know how much you care. All right? So building a relationship is key to every good leadership. And these relationships must be built long before a crisis situation arises. All right? Such that when the situation comes on, when you are confronted with a crisis, it becomes easier to continue to relate with followers at that point. So before the crisis situation, you must have a sound and workable relationship with those who are supposed to be followers. And by the way, every good leader makes an effort to turn followers into leaders. All right? To transform followers into leaders. That's the aim of every good leader. Transforming leaders or followers into leaders. And if you do that, one easy thing is to, or the easiest way is to have a relationship with everyone across board. Now, if you create a distance between you and the people that you're supposed to be leading, when crisis arises, you would find out that you are at the top, but you are alone at the top. And that's not what leaders want. You don't want to be alone at the top. You want to have people by your side all the way, particularly when there is a crisis situation. So relationship is key, and forming that relationship is important right before the crisis arises. And again, you cannot form a relationship unless you exhibit integrity, and at the heart of integrity is trust. So unless you are trustworthy, unless people can trust you, can come close to you and take your word for what it is, you may suffer some loss if that does not happen even before a crisis situation. So I advocate for leaders to have a sound relationship with followers and to build that relationship based on trust. And trust comes from your word matching your actions. So your words and your actions must be the same in the daytime as well as in the nighttime.
I think that's quite interesting that you say you don't want to be a lonely leader, because I think many people find that it's very lonely being a leader because you're looking after your team, you're working with the people above you that are trying to tell you, how to run whatever project it is that you're doing as well. So when you're like this in this situation, a lot of people say to get a mentor or a coach to help you with being able to go over scenarios and maybe come up with different answers to them or different ways of action. What do you suggest?
Okay, so I would agree with those who suggest that you have a coach and a coach or a mentor. And most again, there's a slight difference between where coach is and where mentor is. And my thought is to always advocate that you get a mentor, someone you can look up to and who can in turn help you with certain areas of challenges. Okay. Now, mentorship is so key, it's so fundamental as far as leadership is concerned, because again, when you train people, you train them so you can pass on a vision to them. You train them so that they can run with the vision you have created, and in that course, you can say that you left a legacy behind. Now, a number of people mistake legacies for the number of structures you are able to build, for the handouts you are able to make available to people. But I see legacy as the number of persons you are able to develop and train, because people will always outlive and outrun or outlast structures. Okay? So get a mentor, someone who can guide you, someone who can teach you and train you on things that you would not ordinarily have known by yourself. Someone who can guide you and give a pathway on which you can walk on and achieve your leadership goals and leadership dreams, as it were. So you need a mentor, and in getting a mentor, you are developing a relationship that is solid, that is sound, and from that relationship, you are able to also train others and become a mentor to them, having been trained by a mentor or having been helped by a mentor. That's my thought and my feelings on that.
What is your guidance for creating an open and trustworthy environment for your team to maybe challenge themselves and you and to be able to co-create solutions in? How do you go about doing that?
Okay. My thoughts, well, my belief is this, that first, your work environment must run on the policy that people call open door policy. So such that you've got to be a people's person, all right? And I mean, when I say a people's person, I mean you've got to care first for every individual as if they were individuals and as if they were very important to the attainment of whatever goals you've set ahead of all of you, all right? So you've got to be very, very personal and individualistic, as it were, for every member of your team. Then you've got to make the environment as friendly as possible. Sometimes I advocate that you visit people who are supposed to be your subordinates. At the most unlikely times, you visit, you share in their joy, you share in their pain, all right? That way they know that you feel what they feel, you understand how they feel, and you're willing to share in their pain and in their joy or their joy at any point in time. Then, in making decisions, you've got to have an open door policy. So you allow everybody come in with his or her own suggestions and with their own creativity, so that everybody sits around the table, shares the idea, and you rub minds and arrive at the best possible suggestion. I give you an example with myself, all right?
Yeah.
Many years ago, about 12 years ago, I had the privilege of leading a youth team. And in beginning with that project, I had a vision written out on paper. And on the first day of the meeting, I shared out the papers and asked everyone to go take a look at the vision and come back and make suggestions as to where we need to tweak, what we need to bring in and take out. I was amazed at the next meeting by the level of ideas that were churned out, and the vision had grown beyond my imagination and thought. And at the end of 6 years, when my term for the leadership was done and I was supposed to step aside, a number of people advocated that I continued, all right, in that position. But I said, no, we had a constitution that suggested after 6 years, you must step aside. And I said, I would stick with the constitution and step aside. So little did they know that I just gave the framework, but the entire team built the framework into something bigger and larger than myself. And up till date, there are people who still make reference to that time as they continue to observe several leaders. So I think that if you are open and you allow people come into your vision to see ways in which they can add value to the vision, then I'm sure that the vision can grow. And that way, the team will remain as one team and will run smoothly.
So on the opposite side of this, how do you deal with conflict?
Wow. So
I've thrown a curveball in there.
All right, so this is about the toughest job that a leader should deal with when you deal with conflict, because conflict resolutions can be very tricky. And I say this because if you have a team and you've built a team, most likely you're a friend with everyone on the team. And if you're a friend with everyone on the team, sometimes you are cautious about what you would like to say to a member of the team so you don't discourage the member of the team or you don't make the member of the team feel slighted, all right? But this is what I usually do in handling such situations. So where there is a conflict, either between me and another on the team or between two other persons on the team, I try to meet both individuals privately. So what I try to do first and foremost is to hear from them and understand their position without judging them, okay? So I try to understand their position. I do not judge them, and yet I tell them, you seem to be making sense on your position, but could you look at the flip side of your position if your facts were not correct? And many a times I get people begin to wonder, begin to think, oh, could there be a flip side of the position I'm holding on to? And because they've been challenged to look at the flip side, a number of people begin to look at other options other than the ones that they've held on to. And I do the same thing with other members or the other conflicting side of the situation. Before I bring them together, we now sit and look at a rounded picture. So we look at both sides of the picture, and I ask and challenge both conflicting parties to look at the other side of the picture. And many a times, I get people who now think or who now feel that, oh, they had been narrow in their thinking, they had been myopic in the way they were looking at things, and begin to look at the other side of things and begin to understand the other person's position. And before long, rough edges are smoothened and conflict is resolved, as it were. So this is, for me, the tactics I've used to try to resolve conflicts as they arise.
How important do you think it is for the leader to see the bigger picture?
Whoa, extremely important. All right, extremely important. My best definition of vision is the picture of a brighter future. That's what that's how I define vision, the picture of a brighter future. So, and for you to have a vision, you must have a big picture, okay? Bigger than your immediate environment and bigger than your available resources, bigger even than your strength, your current strength. You must look at this picture as wide and as big as can be. I shared a story earlier on about the youth group that I led. And so I had a picture in mind, but other members of that group, of that team, added onto the picture. And the moment they added onto the picture, it expanded what I had seen, and I had no choice but to look at the bigger picture from everybody's angle. So I think it's important that every leader looks at the big picture and sometimes the bigger picture than the entire team in itself. That way, you're able to constantly motivate members of the team. You're able to inspire them onto things that are greater than themselves, okay? Science has said to us that no matter how long you live, you hardly exhaust 10% of your brain cells, all right? That tells me that no matter how well you've used your brain cells, there are still bigger pictures within your brain. And if you dare to dream big, you can achieve great and higher things. Many years ago, we never thought any human would attempt to land on the moon. Today, Elon Musk is talking about taking tourists to the moon to go and just observe the moon and return. For me, that's amazing. He's looking at a big picture, bigger than what a number of us could have imagined before now.
Well, Shadrach, we're coming to the end of our time together. It's just gone so quickly. Before you go, will you let everybody know where they can find you and your services on the internet?
All right, thank you so much for the privilege and the opportunity to do this. So, like I said, I'm on Born to Lead is the organization that I lead. Again, it was founded because we understand that my team and I understand that every one of us who is living currently on earth has leadership potentials in the inside of them. And basically, they require some form of training to be able to draw out the position from within them. So because of that, we started Born to Lead. And so Born to Lead is on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Born to Lead. If you go to YouTube, you'd see that. I also have a second YouTube channel that's personal to me, Shadrach Bako. I also do leadership talks and just snippets on leadership wisdom. So Shadrach Bako, Bako is B-A-K-O. You can find me on YouTube, and you can find Born to Lead on YouTube. It's the same thing on Facebook. I have a page, Shadrach Bako. That's the page for me as a person. I also have a Born to Lead page on YouTube. On Facebook. That again, you can try to check out what we're doing. On Instagram, I have myself at this.shadrach on Instagram. I also have b.t.lead on Instagram for the organization. These are the places where you can find me. On Twitter, Shadrach Bako at so Shadrach Bako on Twitter. Again, Born to Lead on Twitter also, and also on LinkedIn, Shadrach Bako. On LinkedIn, Born to Lead on LinkedIn. So these are the places where you can find us any day that you choose to search for us. Thank you.
So just about everywhere, and potentially shortly the moon, Shadrach is there. You can find him, just search him. And we'll tag everything below so that you can see where you can find Shadrach, and then you can just click through. I think it's amazing what you're doing, Shadrach. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you today.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm grateful for this opportunity.